Okay, well, welcome everyone again to yet another virtual classroom session. Today we're going to be talking about the MCh operator interface panel and, more importantly, how to interact with a program, a Machine Control Studio program that is present in either the MCI controller module or the onboard target, either one. So I'd like to point out that, again, this session is not intended to be a full-on training course for the MCh operator interface panel. And I'll show you what I've got here. Let me switch to, let's see, let's go here. So here is my training course on the Learning Management Center, or the Learning Center, it's called. So if you have a login to the Learning Center, this training course goes through everything from start to finish. So with examples, so I am going to be redoing some of these things during this course today. But if you really want an in-depth training, this is a much better place to go. So with that, I don't have much of a PowerPoint today. I'm going to be spending most of my time working with either Machine Control Studio or with the MCh mobile software. So I do appreciate your being here today with me. I appreciate that, taking time out of your day. As I mentioned, I don't know that we'll need to go tomorrow. We'll just have to see how today goes. If we do run short of time, if we do need to carry on tomorrow, I will, of course, send invites to all of you guys for tomorrow as well. So what I want to do, again, the focus of this course is to review the Machine Control Studio project. I have made some changes to it since last time you guys saw it. And if you'll recall, this is the sequential function chart for the motion controller, the advanced motion controller. So we'll go through that. And for those of you who may have missed the very first session, which covered the advanced motion controller, those videos are all on our YouTube channel. So those actually recorded, and they are available, and it's 3 parts. So we'll look at the Machine Control Studio project. Then we're going to look a little bit at the MCh HMI, which is what you see here on the screen. And more importantly, we're going to have a look at how to use MCh mobile software. So that's what I want to do today. Once again, we'll have a break at 11 my time, and then we'll finish and we'll be done by noon today. So to begin with, Machine Control Studio. So again, I did present a 3-part Machine Control Studio course last month. Unfortunately, the audio didn't record, so I couldn't post those videos. But I will be rebroadcasting, as it were, that training course probably in August or September. Now I'm going to go through and show you the project and what I did to permit Modbus TCP IP access from the MCh HMI. So here's a screen grab that shows the structure of my project, or my configuration in Machine Control Studio. And I have added a POU entitled HMI interface. And that is what I'm using to map variables from the project to application menu parameters. Now, you're going to see in a minute, why did I do that? Well, I did that primarily because you need to have access to, in order to have access to the parameters, they must have Modbus addresses. Well, if it's not a direct drive parameter, then I'll need to add the variable to an application menu, so it does, or you are able to create a Modbus address and reference it that way. So here's a little screenshot from, this is a earlier version, but you get the point. So on the right here are some of the parameters or some of the variables I created in Machine Control Studio. So the preface GVL1 is my global variable list number 1 that I created for my project. So you see here, I've got a variable called part1 counter. And in order to, because that is not a drive parameter, it's not a menu dot parameter, I had to equate that with one of our application menu parameters. And to show you what I'm talking about, I'll flip over to Connect Software now and show you the application menu parameters. So over here on the left, you see here starting with menu 18, application menu 1. So if I open that, these are literally just memory locations. These would be similar to a PLC where you want to create user memory or user tags, and these are organized by their data type. And that this will become really important because you need to make sure that the variable that you're mapping to an application menu is of the correct data type. Otherwise, Machine Control Studio will complain. So as you can see, here are some read-only integers. Now this is important too. Notice that's a power down save integer. So if I had something coming in from my HMI or what have you, my control program, my external control program, I would want to make, and I wanted to save that value. So the next time, through a power cycle, if the drive were power cycled, I wanted to retain that value, I would map it to one of these power down save parameters or application parameters. So there's one there. There's more down at the bottom, but that's the first one. Here's some read-only integers. Now here's some read-write integers that you see here. So as I continue scrolling down, here are some bits, Boolean data types. So as I scroll down, here are some more power down save. Now these are long integers. So these are 32-bit parameters here. They're dints, right? Whereas this one is just a integer that you see there, and you can see the range of data. So that can only store up to 32,767. Whereas these guys down here are double integers. So once again, with Machine Control Studio, the data type is critical. And now there are plenty of conversions in Machine Control Studio if you need to convert from one type to another, but it's best to use the native data type when possible. So we have parameters in menu 18. We've got more in menu 19. Same kind of structure. We've got still more in menu 20. Now these are strictly integers that are available for me to use. Some are read-write. Here are double integers down here. So those are kind of the Unidrive M700 application menus. Now what you also have, because you have an M700, I'm sorry, an MCI 210 there, if I look at the dashboard for it, here are more parameters that you can use, right? So these are all 32-bit. So there are loads of memory locations available to you for mapping data out of the drive to some external controller using Modbus TCP. So I wanted to point that out right off the bat. Does anybody have any questions there? All righty. Well, then now the advantage to using our HMI is the fact that XOR, it's manufactured by XOR, we don't make it, it's private labeled, but what XOR have done is they've gone in and they have modified the communication driver for Modbus TCP IP to include all of our menus and parameters. So you can access things directly by menu and parameter, and you'll see that here in just a little bit. So again, this is what I did in my control program here. And I'm just going to open up the Machine Control Studio here and show you now, because I have made some changes here. All right, so here I'm online with the controller now, as you can tell. I'm on my initial step for my program here. But if I were to look at the HMI interface now, it's probably easier to look at this offline, so let me go offline. There we go. So this is my HMI interface program. And what I did here, if I look at my task configuration, here are the 3 POUs that are part of my freewheeling task. So I've got my main, my HMI interface, and my PLC program running on the freewheeling task here. All right, so let's go back now and look at this. So I've just used comments to kind of organize things. And again, these are all things that I am going to be getting, or I'm going to be exposing to the end user using the MCh HMI. So I want them to be able to check the status of any of the drive inputs and outputs. So I've just referenced menu 8 parameter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is the read-only status for those inputs. I also want them to have access to the state of the safe torque off, which is menu 8 parameter 9. So that's read-only as well. Then I've given them access, or I've provided access to the parameter called percentage load, which would monitor the torque output from the drive. And it's in terms of percent of rated torque for that particular drive. So this is a way, and this is kind of a thing now, is people are doing predictive maintenance. So by monitoring the load percent over time, which is a feature of the HMI, I've got that set up as a trend, monitoring the load percentage over time, I'm going to be able to tell if the mechanical components in my system are wearing. If I notice a general trend upward in the load percentage over time, well, that's an indication that the mechanical components in the drivetrain could stand lubrication, for example, or there's just something not right. So, you know, again, you saw all the variables which were you're able to access. So really there isn't much of a limit as to what you can expose to an operator on the HMI. So as I move down here, here are my program variables that I use throughout these steps in my program. So that's how I have got this program arranged. And if I go back online now, right, you can see reading and writing to it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the MCh HMI now, and I'm going to show you, first of all, my solution to this project, but then I'm going to build a few screens with you just to show you how you might get at some of these things. So I'm going to leave this open for the time being. We'll come back here. So that's the mapping. Now in terms of the HMI itself, this HMI is considered to be what we call an integration product. And that means that we don't make it. Exor make it and private label it for us, but we sell this to make it easier to integrate our drives. So, and again, the feature, the advantage of this particular HMI is that Exor have customized their communication driver, so you don't have to mess around guessing if we're 0 or 1 based, you know, and so on and so forth. So this is available in 2 sizes, a 4-inch and a 7-inch. I'm using the 7-inch here today, but you can get it in either way. So now the software, it's called MCh Mobile software, and you can download this for free from the integration products section of our website. So that's what the splash screen looks like. So without further hesitation, I'm going to flip over to the software now, and let's have a look and see what we're doing here. Okay, well, this is pretty busy here, as you can see, but this is my project, okay? So this is the solution, as it were, for the project that's going to be used, the HMI that's going to be used to access my sequential function chart. So I've just added these screen elements here, and I'll show you the screens. This is what I'd consider the main screen. So I've got a graphic, and again, we're simulating a rotary print table here. And the way I've got the project structured now is the operator can choose product 1 or product 2. So if he chooses product 1, that's going to flag Machine Control Studio and also the Advanced Motion Controller that the position for product 1 is going to be station 1, 3, and 5. So if he selects product 2, then it's going to be 2, 4, and 6. There's also a product counter for each of the products that will update every time it passes from, for example, if it's product 1, every time it passes from 5 to 1, that'll update. If it's product 2, it'll be every time it goes from 6 to 2. So there's a counter for each product. Then these are my program control push buttons here. I have start, stop, and reset. And then down below here, this is an alarm banner. I've also got some alarms set up, which is, of course, critical to an operator to see what's going on should there be something wrong with the drive. And then these are my main navigation buttons for the HMI. So I've got 3 main screens. I've got a main screen, a control screen, and an alarm screen. So that's the main screen you're looking at there. Now, if I were to go look at the control screen, that's what this looks like. So here, I have a numeric field that the operator can use to change the motor speed. I have a couple push buttons to select product 1 or product 2. I have another push button here to enable and disable the drive. Here's my load magnitude that I'm using on a trend, which I'll show you here in a minute. Again, that's the torque component. And then I've got I/O status over here. Now, I'm not using any of these drive inputs for my actual project, but I just wanted to show how you would do that so the operator can see what the state of these are. And then there's the state of hardware enable right there. So that's control. And then here, that's the actual alarms. Let's see if I can find the alarm. There's my alarms screen for my HMI. So what you've got here, this is a widget, and I'll be showing you the widgets from the widget gallery here. But this is kind of an alarm history. Actually, it's an alarm acknowledge. This one is not historical, but there is a historical one if you wanted that one. So this is where the operator, if the drive were to trip or there's a print station alarm, he would come in and acknowledge that he's seen those trips. And then from the control screen, I have a trends button, which is only accessible. The idea might be that you would lock the control screen out. I don't know. The MCh HMI allows security. There's quite a security system here. I don't have it employed in this system, but know that it's available, and you might be able to use, you might want to lock people out of the control screen, whatever, you get the point. But trends, here's the trend screen, and what I'm doing is I am trending that percent load over time. So this is my solution to the example program. And what I want to do is I will actually run that now. And I will show you how it works. Does anybody have any questions? I know, Ian, did you have a question regarding Machine Control Studio, you said?
In terms of
best practices?
It was more just on the touch screen. So I have a situation where there's basically different types of pages they can go to.
Okay.
So there'll be like a setup page, a run page,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing.
Sure.
But within those pages, then there's multiples of those. So there'll be 8 pages of, say, run queues, for instance.
Okay.
Or 8 pages of setup queues.
Okay.
And does it make sense to use a variable and basically just the pages are like it's a single static base page, or do you do a page for each thing, I guess?
It
makes sense if I could show you what I've got kind of programmed up already.
Yeah. Let me see. Can you share your screen there?
Yeah.
Or I can, one of the two.
I have to get the program happening here.
I will make you presenter.
Just getting going here. Okay. Sure.
So you're now the presenter.
Okay. And I'm sharing my screen.
Okay, here we go, yeah.
See that? So yeah, so what I've got are, so basically you have your start page.
Yep.
Then we have a home. So you have your 4 different options.
Mm-hmm.
Show, edit, jog, and then settings.
Okay.
And then the next is you pick which of the 8, and then you get into, then you're running. And this, I just put XX as basically a holder.
Okay.
kind of idea. And then edit's kind of the same, and then I've got my base
Yeah.
templates. And where I actually got to, it shows, I started working on a script idea,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't sure if that was the right way to go or not.
In terms of hiding and showing things?
In terms of the different pages within the pages.
Oh, I like, so you have can you go back to your home page, for example?
Yep.
Oh, so you've got a settings page also?
Yeah, I haven't actually got it yet, but I'm just sort of at the preliminary layout idea.
Yeah, what I do, I'm a fan of a page for when it comes to an HMI, I like to have pages organized by function. You know what I mean?
Okay.
At the end of the day, it needs to be such that the operator won't be confused. The navigation needs to be consistent, so the
Right.
operator's not confused as to where they're at. How do I get here? How do I get there? So yeah, I think yours looks pretty good there. Go to the Q select again. Right.
Yeah, there's I started kind of thinking up a script to basically load a variable, but then when you go to the running, for instance, then that variable would say what queue you're on here.
Oh yeah. No, that's a good use of a script. That's something that so your Machine Control Studio program, you have queues?
Again, that's basically, it was selecting what page you're gonna go to, and then yeah, in Machine Control Studio there'll be stored values from the edit page, which
Okay.
is pretty much the same as the running. And
Okay.
then those would store, so when you call up that queue, then it would pull that information and load your AMC.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I that looks good to, and then the arrow buttons, what do the arrow buttons do?
That just you go back and forth. So the idea is on the left there, where it says normal, you could arrow ahead or back depending on what your mode is.
Okay. Okay.
And you could always arrow back to the home.
Sure.
Was the idea.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
that
I'm
looks
trying to keep as slick as possible, but obviously it's a lot of info. I got to try to cram into a 4-inch screen.
Oh my goodness, that's a 4-inch screen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be a lot.
Yeah, and that might change. It's just like I said,
Yeah.
it's kind of preliminary at this point.
No, I think you're on the right track there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It looks good to
And then,
me.
and then my next thing was, like, obviously we have a reset and then a status of whatever. There'll be various signals that can trigger that status and
Sure.
play whatever the problem is. Then the other thing was, in terms of the AMC with an HMI, still want to have a user positive interface, so that would be a push button that goes straight to the MCI for like the go command, for instance, for the AMC, as opposed to the HMI. Is that
Sure.
sort of a good practice?
Yeah,
Like hardwired.
yeah, what I've done, and I'll show you
I'll stop sharing.
how I got things started there. So, all right. So, you still see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah, so the AMC, I mean, in terms of the AMC and what I've done, that comes within each of these steps, right? So we used Connect software, and we did all the scaling, and we did all that stuff. But again, with the AMC, well, here, let's just look. So here on the initial step, I'm going to go offline again. Right, so here's my initial step in my sequential function chart. And you can see I've referenced some elements of the AMC, for example, right there. The initial step, I want to make sure the AMC is in stop mode to begin with. And I just sort of initialize variables at this point. And here's another AMC reference. I have set up it's a rotary print station, right? So I set up a rollover of 360.000 degrees. So I did that here in this action for this step. I also have done some things here too, and I think I touched on this a little bit with at the Machine Control Studio, the last course. But one of the most important things with Machine Control Studio and a sequential function chart in particular, how do you stop it? You know, once it's started here and it's in these steps, it's going to perform the code that's called out in each of these steps, right? Well, what happens if I want to stop motion? I want to stop this from executing. Well, I suppose I could have put instructions in each one of these steps to get me out of here and back here, but a better way to do that is to use from the project settings page. If you look here, if I come down to my sequential function chart right there, here are sequential function chart flags. Now, these by default are not all used or declared. So what I've done is I have chosen to use this one, the enable limit. Now this one here, that's the one that I'm going to use to stop. And if I look, I wish I could make that bigger. I can't make that dialog bigger, which is a problem. But if I scroll over to the description, SFC reset, all steps and actions are reset. The init step is activated and its actions will be executed. Well, that's what I want to have happen. When I invoke this, I want this chart to, wherever it is, bail out and come back here. So that's what the stop function that I've used to stop this sequence. Now, I've also added some things since last time. Most importantly, I've enabled a limit. And what that does is, you know, again, if this were a real machine and I'm out here on my print station, something goes wrong on the print station so that it can't get this transition to go here, well, it's going to be stuck here. Well, unless I provide a mechanism to the operator to know, hey, something is wrong here on a print station, he'll never know that. You know, my HMI, again, the HMI will just show that it's stuck on whatever station that the problem occurred on. So what I've done is I've enabled this enable limit, and that enables time check on a step. So I've set a maximum time of 15 seconds per step. Now, of course, that would vary, you know, if it were a real machine, however long it had to be there. But the point was that now I'm able to not only stop the thing, but if there's a problem somewhere out here, I can alert the operator to that. So this quit error will clear the time limit. You know, if that occurs, it'll clear the time limit. I've also got an error step which contains the name of the step that caused the problem in the first place. So these, if you're using sequential function chart anyway, these things are important for the control and the operation by the operator. So that's what I'm using to go through here. And then again, to come back to the AMC, this is the actual motion control here. So here's the example of a step, and the steps are all basically the same, at least when they're moving to position. So here is where I've called out, or I've declared a variable, a global variable that I'm using in my MCh HMI. That global variable will trigger that sequential function chart reset. So that is what's going to be doing the stopping of the chart if there's a problem. So we fall through, and here are the AMC portions, or the AMC code, where I set the acceleration time to 1 second. What I do basically is just divide whatever the speed is by 100. So I get a 1 second accel decel. There's the position I want. That could have been a user variable also, but menu 34 parameter 3 is the AMC position reference, as you can see there. So here is where I'm putting my position in degrees into the AMC. Then to actually get the motion started, I'm shifting menu 34 parameter 7, which, as you'll recall from the last session, that is how I move, or I shift the AMC into position mode. So with a value of 1, that's an absolute position. And then further, now that it's moving, you have to envision that it's moving, the motor's moving to a different station now. Now what I want to do, and there are some variables in the AMC that you might think you could use to know that the motor's in position, and I'll show you those. Right, so I'll go to menu 41 now, which is where the AMC control and status is. So you might think, oh, okay, well, movement complete. Well, let's think about that. Well, it's on. Well, how am I going to move if I'm already where I'm supposed to be? How am I going to move? If I reference this bit to know I'm in position, well, that will come on and off. There's also a profile complete flag. Well, that too will come on and off as it's running. But they're home required. There's control word. There really isn't a good way to know that I am in position here, right? So that's what I did with this code here. So up top here, I load the AMC position into a variable. And then as it's moving now, I use this if instruction to say, if that, I want to be at 60 degrees. So if I'm within plus or minus 0.1 degree here, then I set my own at position 1 variable as true. So I've done this same sort of thing for each of the steps where the motor needs to move. So that's how I'm determining I'm where I need to be for sequencing before I move to the next station. So I've got a timer here that I'm using. I'm starting there. I'm in position. I start my timer now. And here's my timer. This is a function block. And even though this is text, as I pointed out the last session, even though it's text, I can still invoke function blocks. So here is my in to the timer, which comes from there. And the reset is print 1 timer done, right? So when the timer is done, it's going to reset the printer or this timer automatically. My preset time, I give it 5 seconds. There's the output, timer done. So that's pretty standard PLC timer. Then before I move on, I say if print one timer done is true, then move to the next position, clear the done, put the AMC in stop mode, and then turn off my indicator bit, which is used in the HMI. So that's kind of the logic that I use for each one of these steps where it's moving to position. Same thing here. I just updated the position, updated my in position window, and so on and so forth. So that's what I did in each one of these steps. Now the counter step is here. So here is my counter. This is a function block again. No, you know what? It's not. This is my own counter, right? So I just created my own little counter. I didn't use a CTU function block here. This is just my own little counter here. So that's how, and then once the counter's been updated, turn off some position bits, and then product count updated is true, which is, let's see, where am I here? Which is right there. So that's the transition. Then it comes back up when it flows through here, comes up to here, then it checks, am I stopped? If I have a product selected, then it just loops back through again. So the way I've constructed this sequential function chart, it's kind of like a recipe in a way. I've only got 2 products here, but I could have as many as I needed, or as many as I need out here. And also, speaking of recipes, the MCh HMI also supports recipes also too. So if you need a recipe, you can do it in the HMI. So that's kind of the structure of the main motion control program. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Just a quick question on, and I understand if not, but would we be able to have access to that code, that setup?
Sure. Yes.
I just use that as a reference for myself.
No, I don't care. If you want to make your own Pete Arthur special rotary table, Ian, that's fine.
Well, it's not far removed from what I'm doing, really.
Is that right?
Well, you think about it, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 queues.
Oh, yeah, right.
Essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And my application will be individually called, but it's the same kind of principle.
Oh, I guess it would be, wouldn't it? Because you're moving stuff from point A to point B.
Yeah, like your AMC setup is exactly what I was looking at doing.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, if anybody wants this, please send me an email so I don't forget. I think there is a way I could send it to you right through WebEx, but I don't really want to run the risk of blowing up my meeting here. Yep. So I will be happy to send a project archive of this project to anybody who's interested. Just send me an email to training.cta@mail.nidec.com or peter.arthur, ARTHUR, @mail.nidec.com, and I'll get that to you. So
thank you.
That's the main motion control program here. But what I've also added to is this PLC program here. So this I did in ladder. You know, most people get ladder, and it's actually a good development language for handling digital signals. So this is coming in from the HMI. This is my stop push button. So when that's true, or the drive is tripped, right? Either one of those, this is going to issue the SFC reset, right? So that will stop the sequential function chart. So that's what the first rung is. Quit error here is going to also set if this will be active when there's a step timeout. So the stop push button will reset that. So I just moved down. Here's my start code. Now the push buttons on the HMI are momentary, right? So this is coming from the HMI. So what I did there, since it's momentary, is I created a latch. I just latched around the start push button and then not stop and not reset, right? So this is the stop push button, so that can't be on. So either way. Then I just put these maintenance override. If you got a maintenance team there and they want to get in here and override the HMI or controller, I just provided them a bit that they could force, for troubleshooting purposes. So I did that here. This starts the print table. Here's select product type 1. Again, it's momentary, so I latched around it. Product 2, same thing, latch around it. Some test, maintenance guide test contacts. They could test the functionality of these. Now here, if it's stuck on, the sequential function program is stuck on a step for more than 15 seconds, I'm going to get this main error, and it's going to throw out print station error. And that I've got set up as an alarm in the HMI. So that's one. There's only 2 alarms that I've got. Now in practice, you'll probably have a lot more, but just to try to keep it somewhat simple, I only have 2. That's one of them. Then I'm monitoring menu 10 parameter 1, which is drive healthy. So, if I were concerned as to exactly what the trip was, I would not use this methodology. I would probably use the status word rather than this type. So let me show you that in Connect. So menu 10 in Connect, we have status word right there. So menu 10 parameter 40 is the status word. So I, excuse me, I could have very easily just read this too. I could have used this, and then I could have bit encoded it or deconstructed it bit by bit to know, because it's not going to send this binary pattern you see here. It's going to send a decimal number. So I would have to deconstruct it on the HMI side to know, okay, well, bit 1 is true, so that means the drive is active at speed, and these other items. So that doesn't really tell me about the trip, so to speak. It is the status. But here are the actual, the drive trip log itself, right? If I wanted to know, what trip do I have, not just a generic trip like I'm looking at, then I would have to access these things. I'd have to incorporate these things because these are the major drive trips here. So that's kind of what I've done. I'm not so concerned as to what the trip is. I just want to know, is the drive tripped or not? So I just use drive healthy. So if it's not healthy, then it's tripped. Well, that makes sense. And this is my other alarm. So I've got that and that as alarms. And then here is the reset push button on my HMI. So now, in this case, and I'll look on the HMI next, I could have, assigned a Modbus address to that, but what's the point? I'll just write right to this. You know what I mean? That's the reset function, but I just got it out there so you could see it. So that's pretty much what I've got going on with Machine Control Studio now. From this point forward, I'm just going to be showing you the operator interface. So any questions at this point before we switch over to the MCH mobile software?
Peter, I have a question, and it's not about the program or Machine Control Studio, it's about the HMI.
Okay.
So you and Eon were talking about that his screen is 4 inches. Sorry. His screen is 4 inches, but he might change it to 7 inches. Is there a way to, like, if you have a project that it's already in 4 inches and you want to turn it to be 7 inches, is there a way just to convert the items or the buttons and everything to match with the 7 inches screen?
Good question.
If you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do. So if I created a project for 4-inch, can I make it 7-inch
Exactly.
without a lot of hassle? I've not tried that. I don't. Let's see. Do we have? Format, view, properties. I don't. I'll look into that. This is Amen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say that there is a way to do that.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking this is, like, I work with like a couple of manufacturers, Ellen Bradley or Pinor or like Wago.
Sure.
So you'll be designing a screen for like 10 inches or 7 inches, and then suddenly the customer needs it to be 10 inches instead of 7.
Right.
So you have to go back and change everything on the screen. While some of them supply kind of a poverty, which is stretch the screen.
Yeah.
And it will adjust all the dimensions to match the new dimensions.
Yeah. Right.
And it will be easier instead of like taking each item on the screen and change that. That's why I asked.
Yeah. I think here. Here, I'm just looking here. I don't know. I'll look into it. I could have sworn that when I went to X, there is a way to do it. I've never tried it. I think because you'll notice here, there's nowhere in here that says, oh, switch to a 4-inch project. This is a 7-inch project here. You know what I mean? So I don't see any way here to say, oh, this is a 4-inch panel now.
Got it.
But that just doesn't seem right, though. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Project properties. Ah, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. Well, let's see what happens if I change it to a 4-inch. Yeah, so you see what's happening here.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Page size.
What's that?
You have to check keep page size, so you have.
Well, it says here, do not change the page size. Well, I want to change the page size.
Okay.
I don't know. What the heck? I'll just say yes. So let's go see what we look like now. Yeah, no. That answer your question?
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah,
same thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do it, but it ain't easy.
Yeah. Yeah. You could do it, but don't.
But don't.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting though. Let me try that again and say keep page size.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
well, I don't know. Well,
Is this
it looks like it
this
worked.
4 inches?
I don't know. It looks like it worked. I guess I'd have to have hardware here to see if it actually worked, but that looks like it worked.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. I don't have a 4-inch panel to verify that, but it sure looks like it worked.
Well, if you apply it in the 7 inch, it should be almost half size.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, that worked. It looks like it works.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? We'll take our mid-conference break here. Let's come back at 10 after, if that's okay with everybody.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, everybody can see my screen, I hope. I have my MCH project up. So, what I want to do is I want to demonstrate how this works. And then we'll begin looking at using the software itself just to create some pages and a communication driver to show you how this goes together. So what I want to do, first of all, is when I created this project, you see where it says unified right there. What that means is with this particular software, you can create pages for the hardware or for the web interface or both. So when I said this project has unified pages, that means I want to display the same project on my hardware, my actual HMI, and on the web page. So that's one of the nice features about this particular product is that there is web access, which is a thing now, of course. And there's 2 different ways to do that. I can call up the IP address of the HMI, which I set initially, or I can also access it using a VNC client. So I can demonstrate both of those methods, and I will. But before I do that, I want to show you the simulator. So I just happen to have hardware here. You know, I've got an HMI that I'm connected to. But if you don't, then you can use the simulator. So up here on the toolbar, there's an icon that says Start Simulator. So I will click that. And here is what the simulator looks like. Now, this is my project running. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that. So there is the hardware. There's my motor. There's the HMI itself. But here I am in the simulator. So you can see right now it's at station 3, and it just moves along to 5. And once it gets past 5, It's going to update the counter on the way to 1. Now I don't display the actual position on this table or on this page. What I did is, if you recall earlier in the first session when we looked at the AMC, I put the AMC position in user units on the keypad or on the display of the drive, so I can see it there. So now, if I go to the control page, here is where I can see the status of my hardware enable, if any of my inputs or outputs are on. Here's where I can change motor speed. So I'll click on that and I get a keypad, and I'll say I want to change it to 200. Right, so let me go back to main now. Still running. Now I'll stop it. And what I'll do is I'll stop it, and you can see right away that the motor comes to a stop. It's not processing anymore. And let me show you the Machine Control Studio to show you where it's at. So there it is. When I press that stop, it aborts whatever was going on down here and just comes up to the initial step and hangs there now. You see I've got my product selected, but I need to start it to restart the sequence again. So let me go back here, and now I'll just press start again. Now it's rehoming. So I'll give it a home sensor there. It's at position 1. And away we go. So now I'll come here, I'll stop it again. Now I'll come to control, and I'll choose product 2. So I'll run product 2 now. Rehoming. There we go. So now we're just going to go and run product 2. So it goes 2, 4, 6. Right? So now what happens when something goes wrong? Well, I'll go cause a drive trip. And I do that with a parameter called user trip. So let me go to connect, or external trip it's called. So right there, menu 10, parameter 32. So I'm going to trip that now. And there's my alarm. Right? I got a drive fault there. So if I go to my alarms page, there they are, right? So let me go and turn that off. Notice the motor did not start running again. So I will check those and acknowledge. So it's got a nice timestamp for the trip. Now, I could also, and you'll see this in the alarms, I can write this to an SD card. You have access to these things. So, come back here again. Right? I have to reset the trip on the drive. The drive itself still shows a trip. So there we go. So the trip is reset, but the program did not restart. You know, obviously you don't want the thing just taken off. So now I'll press start again. Let's see where we're at. Whoops, we're waiting. Okay, we're waiting because I don't have a product selected, right? So let me go back, stop, control, We'll say back to product 1. Now we'll start. So there it goes, it's homing. There's my home sensor, and away we go. So that's pretty much what's going on. It's a pretty simple project here. The trends, it has to run for a while to see the trends, but this is what I'm tracking. So if I put some load on the motor here, all right, you'll see that go up quite a bit. And that's what I'm tracking here on the trends, right? It has to run for a while. This is set up for a 5-minute sample or something like that. But sliding the cursor around on the trend screen will show me my data trend once it starts updating. So it just runs, and that's fully configurable. So that's the simulator that we're looking at here, right? So you'd use this if you don't have actual hardware to download to. Now, one thing that I point out in the full-on training class for this module, or for this HMI, if you're using the simulator, right, and you're connected to a drive, let's put it that way, if you actually have a drive but not a HMI, you want to make sure up here in the properties that you uncheck use simulation. Because by default, it won't use the communication driver. It'll just simulate stuff. So if you want to actually access a drive live, you uncheck use simulation. So that's the simulator. So I'll turn that off now.
Are there any limitations to that simulator?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, so it basically does everything that the
Yeah.
hardware could do.
Yep. Yeah, so with your communication, if you're hooked up to your controller, it should work seamlessly. So there's that. Now, the other thing I can do here, let me flip over to my web browser. Says as I'm looking for it here. I have too many things open right now. There it is. Right? So now what I'll do is I'll come here and I'll just access it directly by typing in the IP address. Huh. Yeah, I noticed that. This thing doesn't want to... I think my meeting is having some effect on this, my being able to get to the web interface here. Well, that's too bad. Well, I'm not quite sure why that's not showing up. Let me, oh, I can't. I was going to say I'd restart.
Is it just the IP address, or you have to type in the full there?
Yeah, let's see. Okay, we'll try that. No. I think it's my meeting. Something's going on here.
Okay.
Yeah, because I can't even get to Google. And if you
Yeah,
can't get to Google, that's a huge problem.
It's like a VPN.
Yeah, it's something like that. Well, all right. So the other thing I can do, and I don't know, hopefully this will work, is I can use a VNC client. Called VNC Viewer that I download for free. And I'm not sure if this will work either, but we'll see. No. Yeah, so that's too bad. So anyway, here's something that I had connected to. You can kind of see. I guess you can't. This VNC Connect would work too. So, if If you don't have a web browser or whatnot, you can just use this VNC to get at it also. But it must have some, it must be my the meeting that's preventing me from accessing that. So sorry about that, but trust me, it does work. So that's my little example project. And now what we'll do is I will start a new project with MCh Mobile, and we'll kind of get started, and we'll show you the ins and outs of this program. Right? So I'm going to come up and save that project. And let me just switch to this view. We don't need to see this thing running. There we go. So, File, New. Oop. File, Close. I'll close that one too. Well, how about close project? There we go. Okay. So, when you first launch the software, this is what it's going to look like. Now, I may have these pinned back. Yeah, I do. But like a lot of other software programs, if I grab that, I can move it around. So I just have those pinned back. Like so. So let's start a new project. File, New Project. So I'll give it an example. I'll give it a training example. And we'll store it, my documents, control techniques. I don't have any MCH stuff in here, so I'll just, but that's fine. That's where it's going to go. Next, now we choose the hardware. We've already seen this a little bit, but here you choose the type of hardware that you will be using. Now notice here we also have a runtime. So if you just have a generic touch panel PC, you can also create a project for a touch panel PC, and as long as the runtime is present on the panel itself. So I'm going to choose the hardware that I have right here. Then you can choose the orientation, right? So landscape, reverse, rotate 180, portrait, or portrait reverse. So next. Now here's where you choose the template I was referring to a minute ago. If you want to use the web interface and you want to have the same pages on the hardware and the web interface, choose Unified. Native and web would create two different sets of pages, one for the hardware, one for the web browser. And then custom would allow you to mix and match. So I'm just going to choose Unified and click Finish. Now I don't go into detail about the hardware here so much, but one thing that's really important, when you first get one of these panels, the runtime will not be in there. So the first time you download to the panel, it's going to say, okay, we need to download the runtime. There's nothing you need to do. The software will take care of that for you, but don't be alarmed if you see that message the first time you try to download something. The other thing to note is, how do you get into setup mode on the panel itself? Well, let me switch over to this view and I'll show you. So there you see the screen camera, right? So if I move over here now, and I press and hold on the screen anywhere for 3 seconds, I get into the touchscreen settings. Says I. There it is. Oh, well, that's not good. So we'll restart it. There it is. So, system settings, right? Let me do that again. I'll start my program. There it is. Press and hold. I think the problem was last time I didn't choose, well, there I did it again. You need to choose system settings right there. So I'll choose system settings. So here, right, your language, that's how you exit. I didn't want to exit right there. System settings. Come on now. Well, come on.
I found that majorly slow when I was
It is.
out of storage.
So don't let off the screen when you press and hold. Just go right to settings. And password, okay, fine. That's not what I want. I want system settings. Let's see, show system settings. That's what I want right there. Menu. That's exit. Admin, that gets you out. Menu, there we go. So date and time, for example, which you should set. But more importantly, to give the panel an IP address, you come to network here. Network interfaces, right? So by default, DHCP is on, so you turn that off. You enter your static IP there, and away you go. If I wanted to change it, I would press edit. So the first time you come in, this is the kind of thing, the first time you power up the panel, this is the kind of thing you're going to need to do. So put that back down there. Like so. Okay. Right, so you would have set that stuff up. Now, let's look at what we need to do with the software. So it gives me a page by default, but before we start building pages, I want to look at the protocols. Okay, so I will double click protocols. Here's where we're going to configure the communication driver. So I'm going to, and of course we're a PLC. So I'm going to click Add Protocol. Here you get this little drop-down box here. So I drop down. Here are the supported protocols. Right? So you'll notice we support Ethernet IP as well. That's kind of a different panel that we sold at one point supported this, so we had to include Ethernet IP for those people who were upgrading. So here's the protocol we want to use. Control Techniques Modbus TCP. So I will choose that. Then in here, this is the IP address of the PLC or the drive. So I will just enter that directly. 192.168.1.100, like so. Standard TCP port Modbus is 502, no need to change that. The Modbus mode will depend on whether the parameters that you are accessing from the HMI, do you need to access parameter numbers greater than parameter number 99? If you do, then you would need to choose modified. But more importantly, you would have to go back to your configuration program, connect here, go to the dashboard, Ethernet, parameter listings, Ethernet configuration, right? So the addressing mode now is going to not be on this screen now that I showed this. Okay, where is it? It must be Modbus. It's in Modbus. So it's not there. It is Modbus TCP IP setup right there. Here, slot 4, menu 15, parameter 13 is the register addressing mode. So by default, it's standard. But if I had to access parameter number menu 3, parameter 100 and something or other, for example, so I'll just show you, if I wanted to get at this particular parameter here, I would need to choose modified addressing mode. That's what I mean. Parameter numbers, not menu, parameter numbers greater than 99, I would need to choose modified mode there. So basically, back to the HMI, however you've got that parameter set in the drive, you want to make sure it's the same here. Then there's a 2-second timeout. So I'm all good with that. I'll just click OK. And there we go. So now we've got a protocol. Yes, I want to save the changes. So here's our first page, right? So let me show you some tags next, and then we'll come back to the page. But if I look at tags now, if I double click there, here is how you create a tag. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of choose one that's existing in my project right now, and we'll just duplicate it here. So I'll go back to my program, and I'll go to my HMI interface here, and I will say, okay, let's see, let's go to menu 18, parameter 37. I'm just going to pick on that one. All right. So I'll make a tag for that, and that is select product 1. So I'll make 2 tags, one to select product 1, one to select product 2. Okay. So I'll come back here, and now I'll create a tag. So to do that, I click plus. This is how you define a tag. This is the Control Techniques Modbus TCP dialog. First of all is the parameter. You get your choice. It's 16 or 32-bit. The fact is most all the parameters are 32-bit anyway. Even though this is a single bit, it's going to consume all 32 bits. So I'm just going to choose 32 bits there. Then you choose the menu. So I'll say it's menu 18, and it's parameter 37. Now the data type is important. Even though it's chosen to be a 32-bit parameter, this is going to be Boolean, true or false. right? How did I know that? I knew that from Connect menu 18. So you see 1837 is a read-write bit right there. So it's not, I didn't just choose that arbitrarily. So we'll click OK. Then it says, what's the name going to be? And I will say this is product 1. Now that's all fine, but more importantly, here's the properties. Here's the expanded properties for that tag, and there's some important things here. First of all, the rate at which the tag is sampled. So by default, it's 500 milliseconds. Well, if you want that to be updated faster, you could go down to 50 milliseconds if need be. I don't need to do that for this particular parameter, so I'm not going to change it, but know that if you need to have a little faster access, you could bring it down to 50 milliseconds. Then the access, is it read-write? Well, I'll say yes. If I wanted it to be read-only or write-only, I would choose that. Otherwise, I'll make it read-write. What this does is this is flagging whether or not this particular parameter is updated every scan. By false, it means it's not. If this were something more important, like the stop push button, for example, then I would say that's true. Every scan, I want that tag to be updated. I'll talk about scaling here in a little bit, but for a Boolean parameter, that's all we need to do. So we have product 1 there. I'll add another one for product 2, same thing. 32-bit. It's going to be parameter 38 for menu 18. And it's going to be Boolean. It's like that. So I'll click OK. And I'll just rename this product 2. All right. Let's see. We don't need to do anything over here. There we go. So that's good. We've got a couple tags there. So now that we've got a couple tags, let's go look at a page. This little symbol with the home, that means this is the home page. This is the page that's going to load when the HMI first starts. So we come in here. Here's the properties for this page. Well, I don't like, I could set the height and width. That's the resolution. It's VGA. The 7-inch has VGA resolution, which XVGA, I guess, 800 by 480. So I'll choose the background. I don't like white, so I'm going to use that. I don't have a page template. I could create a template. I think I saw you had some templates there, Ian. Is that correct?
Yeah, because I was reusing it.
Yep, that's a good idea. If you can have a large project, you could save this page as a template and then apply it to other pages, right? Well, actually, you know what? You'd have to create a template. No, you can't save the page as a template. You'd have to create a template and then apply the template to the page. So there is my first page that I have. It's gray, no problem. So let's go to the widget gallery. So it's pretty extensive. I'll go to basic here. So it's kind of laid out a little goofy, I would say. We have a basic category. Well, if you look at it, it's like, well, is this all I get? I get trends, and I don't know. I don't want that. No, you've got this subcategory here. So if I click on that now, here, labels, numeric data fields, that's what this is. text messages, hexadecimal displays. So you have these subgroups. Images. I could import and use my own images here. Shapes, clocks. You know, this is, if I want an analog clock on my display, I would put it there. Trends, graphs, recipes, schedule, alarm, control. You get the picture. Tables. It's quite extensive. I'll just stick with text numeric. So I'll put out a label first. And to do that, I'll just come over here and drag it and drop it, just like that. Then I'll come down here to properties. So that's the label text. So I'll just change that to read main page. Enter. Now notice it didn't size right. So I need to change that sizing, and I can do it this way if I want to do that. Or I can also right-click on the widget and say size to fit the field. So notice that the container contracted a little bit there. Then I can change my text attributes up here. So if I want to be something like that, now there we go. Now I'll size to fit and it'll shrink that field. So there's my text attributes, the alignment of the text and things like that. So there's my main page. Now there's also page events, right? So on activate sets the actions to be executed when the page is displayed. So I could add actions here. And here are my choices for actions. This panel supports JavaScript, which I'm not an expert on, but I have used. So you've got some built-in actions, or you can create your own. One of the actions that's most frequently used is, if I scroll down here, send email, FTP, if you have an FTP server, page actions, right? So for creating page navigation buttons, we're going to do this. We're going to use load page, previous page, next page, whatever it happens to be. So I don't want any pages right there. So there's a label, right? So now let's create a button to go to another page. So to do that, I'll come to the widget gallery again. Now I'll choose buttons. And once again, I have a sub menu here. So standard buttons, wide buttons, illuminated buttons. These are nice. I like these. And what you can do is you can change the colors of these too. So if I come up here, right, I want a gold frame around everything. I could make it look really snazzy like that if I wanted to. Simple buttons. I like simple, right? So there's a simple button. And I will show a frame. That's fine. We'll just do that. No, I don't like that either. I don't like that either. No frames. So now I'm going to use this button. So I'll come down here, put it where I want, drop it, then go to properties. So there's the properties for that button. Now the value would be where I would add a tag. And we're going to do this, but not, there's no tag associated with this screen navigation button. So the label, I will say, go to, I don't know, setup, something like that. No frame. So here I'm going to add my event, just like I showed you a minute ago. So I'll come down here, on mouse click. Now, you need to be careful with that, I suppose, if it were a real machine. You know, if somebody accidentally pushes it, you might want to use press or on release, but I'll use click. So here I'm going to add my action. So I'm going to go to load page. Now I don't have any other pages yet, so I'm going to have to add a page first. That's okay. For now, I'll just say setup. I'll come over here, right click on pages, insert new page. Jumps off the screen. I'll say this is setup. Click OK. Change the background to match the other one. This is where templates come in handy. And now I will come here again, go to my button properties, my action, page name, setup. There we go. So now if I choose a line, let's see, size, can't do that, order, no. So there we go. You can move these around, you get some grid snapshots, so if you want to center things, it's pretty easy. So there we've got page 1 and setup. So now I'll go to setup page. Actually, what I'll do is I'll copy that, paste, then I'll just edit the text. Like so. There we go. So now I'll just add another button to bring me back to the first page. So I'll go to my widget gallery. I'll grab a button, drag it in there. Properties. Main page. Add an action. Load page. Page 1. Like that. So let's save that. Now I'll start the simulator. Keeps popping up off screen. Do you want to start the simulation? Yes, I do. That's popped off screen too. So there's my page. There's my setup page. Then I'm back to the main page. So we've got a basic little project started here. I think I will come back and we'll do this again tomorrow. I'll add some tags here. Is everybody okay with that? I'll send out invites for this tomorrow.
I don't think I'll be able to attend.
Ah, All right.
Sorry.
No problem. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm available.
Okay. Well, then I will just send the invites out for part 2, and we'll do this tomorrow.
Yeah, unless something changes. I just had a appointment I had to keep.
No problem.
Sorry.
All right. Well, does anybody have any questions?
Peter, I have another question about the tags.
Yes.
So you mentioned that you have to insert each tag to the HMI. Is there any way to import the tag that you already defined in machine in the software, machine studio software?
Sadly enough, no.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you. I should qualify that. What I mean by that, let me just move this over here. What I mean by that is, we're using obviously we're using an HMI to access this project, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that is not supported, unfortunately, on our MCI control modules is what's called a visualization. This is a Machine Control Studio is a full-on integrated development environment, right? So what you can do is if I right-click here and I want to I'll right-click here, add object. You see this visualization here?
Yeah.
That's not supported by the MCI hardware, but this visualization would, this is an HMI that's designed to be run on a touchscreen PC. Not a PC, just a touchscreen display that has the CodeSys runtime on it. So a visualization would allow me, just like a regular PLC, to have access to all of the variables, all the tags I've created for this project. But the MCI product does not support visualizations, nor does the onboard target. But the good news is I just returned from our annual sales conference last week, and our guys from the UK came over, and we have a new controller of our own. And you've used Wago before, you said?
Yeah.
Well, it looks just like a Wago PLC. It's a standalone controller that supports Slice I/O and Remote I/O, and it will also support using a touchscreen as an HMI. So probably later this year, probably fall, I would say, we'll release that product. And at that point, then you'll be able to use native tags just like a real PLC would.
Yeah.
So that's a long answer to a short question, but
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's why you said at the beginning that you have to, the tags as you define them in Machine Control Studio, they're both pointing to the same parameter in menu 18.
Yep.
So basically, they are both writing on that parameter.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And I understand why, because this HMI, even though XR, you say the company that made the HMI, but it makes sense because it's kind of third party. It's not
It is.
like related to Control Techniques 100%.
It's exactly third party, yeah. Now, what you can do, let's see. You can, what you can do is if you have all your tags defined, you can, put them in an Excel spreadsheet. I think this does read from an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
But, it's just an extra step. that's not automatic either. You'd have to take everything you did in Machine Control Studio, put it into Excel, then bring it in here. Wow. Why not?
Well, unless you have the same project like every time, or almost like, because usually if you do a project, 80% of the time it's the same tags.
Right.
You have to add some. So it'll be a good idea to use Excel sheet.
Yeah. Now let's see. Import tags. Well, nothing is happening here. I'll have to look into that, Amin. But
Yeah,
it's just an extra step.
yeah, no.
All right. Anybody else have questions? Ian?
Just a last curiosity, and I don't think you can do it, but ideally, all data, information, whatever, is always stored on the MCI or the drive. You can't store it in the HMI.
When you say data, what do you?
Like Excel, DCell.
Oh no,
like
no,
It
that.
has to pull from the MCI to the HMI, and then you basically then load your AMC that way.
Yeah. Otherwise, I didn't do a recipe, but if you had tags for all that stuff,
Yeah.
you could, insert a recipe.
Yeah,
Right.
you get to-
And just add all your tags to the recipe there and have a recipe screen where you could update the screen, and it
Right.
would update the recipe, which would in turn update the tags. But
Gotcha.
no, this again, as Amen was saying there, this is a third-party product. They have no knowledge of our stuff, so there's no
Right.
storage.
No, that's fine. Makes sense.
All right. Well, with that, I will stop recording for the day.